Welcome back to another explainer. Today we're breaking down a fascinating split in the ballroom dance world. Now, if you've ever spent hours sweating through your practice wear, you know the foundation is universal. We're all honing our partner connection, refining our frame, and tapping into that musicality. But where you take those fundamentals, well, that creates a massive fork in the road. In fact, this single choice literally dictates everything from how you spend your Friday nights to where you're draining your bank account. So let's unpack the profound structural and psychological differences between social dancing and competing.
Picture this, a crowded floor. Two couples are out there executing a standard feather step in foxtrot, or maybe a really complex salsa turn. But psychologically, they are playing a completely different game. Doing that feather step at a weekend social mixer versus nailing it in a championship final requires firing entirely different neural pathways. The actual steps might look identical, but the intent behind the movement, those endless hours of unseen practice, and the ultimate metric for success are just worlds apart. We're going to unpack exactly why that happens.
Okay, Section 1, the two dance paths. To really understand the why here, we have to look at the core purpose that drives a dancer to step onto the floor in the first place. In social dancing, the absolute main goal is just having a good time with others. Imagine stepping onto a crowded floor where your only true metric of success is whether your partner smiles at the end of the song. That's a profoundly different goal than technical perfection. It means you're prioritizing comfort, approachability, and friendliness above all else. Dancers here are actively trying to create an enjoyable, shared experience, focusing on the collective positive energy of the room rather than, hitting a perfect, picture-worthy line. But when we cross over into the competitive realm, the objective shifts entirely. It's no longer just about having a fun 3 minutes with the person standing in front of you. The goal is presenting a highly structured performance that can actually be scored and ranked. Think about the intense psychological weight of that, knowing that every single foot placement, every subtle micro-adjustment in your frame is being actively scrutinized by adjudicators with clipboards. That warmth and communal feel of the social floor, it gets instantly replaced by this high-pressure demand for extreme precision and evaluation. Which brings us to Section 2, mindset on the floor. Because those two distinct ultimate goals, having a great time versus fighting for a ranking, fundamentally rewire a dancer's mindset the very second the music starts.
Here's the central tension separating these two worlds: responsiveness and flexibility on one side versus consistency and clarity on the other. It's the fluid nature of adjusting right in the exact moment versus the rigid execution of highly repeatable elements. Understanding this is absolutely crucial. Why? Because training your brain for fluid, spontaneous adjustment is an entirely different cognitive beast than drilling your brain to flawlessly execute a predetermined routine, no matter what kind of chaos is happening around you.
A social dancer's focus requires incredible, almost instantaneous adaptability. They are constantly adjusting to their partner's unique style, which sometimes literally means trying to decipher a lead from a complete stranger in real time. They have to adapt when the DJ suddenly switches the vibe from a smooth foxtrot to an impossibly fast quickstep. And let's be real, sometimes it means gracefully surviving a dance with a partner who totally thinks they're on Dancing with the Stars but completely lacks the timing. The priority is always maintaining a smooth connection, not showing off a technical display. Competitors operate in a totally different headspace. Because their routines are evaluated against strictly defined criteria, their mindset has to be locked into extreme consistency under immense pressure. They're relying on deeply rehearsed, repeatable elements that demand absolute clarity of execution. There's a necessary tunnel vision here. A competitor has to essentially block out the chaotic noise of the audience, completely ignore the other couples actively cutting them off on the floor, and execute a pre-planned, incredibly complex physical routine to sheer perfection.
Moving right along to Section 3, technique and practice. How do these two groups actually build their capabilities? How do they structure their time in the studio? And how does all of that translate into their etiquette on the floor? Well, it comes down to improvisational fundamentals versus choreographed technique. The social dancer relies heavily on partner-led improvised movements, built on a really solid foundation. The competitor, meanwhile, relies on set, choreographed transitions timed perfectly for a judge's assessment. Think about how the brain processes this for a second. Interpreting a spontaneous physical lead in real time requires hypersensory awareness and constant microadjustments. On the flip side, executing a memorized 8 count relies on deeply ingrained muscle memory and explosive, pre-calculated power.
So, training for the social floor means building an incredibly versatile toolkit. Sure, you still need clean footwork and excellent balance, but the heavy lifting, that's all in lead and follow communication. Social dancers are essentially learning a physical language fluently enough to converse with total strangers on the fly, which is a massive cognitive undertaking. You're practicing respectful spacing, ensuring your movement is predictable enough so others enjoy the shared space, and you're constantly adapting to whatever tempo happens to drop next.
Now, the competitive training loop is an entirely different kind of grind. It starts with endless, repetitive drilling of set routines. Then, it moves into this almost scientific teardown of movement through extensive video review and direct coach feedback. Finally, dancers get into highly targeted criteria work. We're talking obsessing over the micro-timing of a hip action, the exact posture of a top line, and complete physical synchronization. It is a relentless, exhausting loop of refinement, all aimed at shaving fractions of a point off a final score.
And naturally, this difference in training spills right over into etiquette. For a social dancer, etiquette has a very living room feel. It revolves entirely around not dominating the floor, making sure everyone is comfortable, and navigating the room respectfully. Competition etiquette? That's got an arena feel. It's about aggressively navigating heats, fiercely protecting your physical space on the floor, projecting outward to the judges, and adhering to strict costume and judging protocols. The interaction with other dancers out there is often purely strategic. So with such radically different toolkits, mindsets, and unspoken rules governing these two paths, it begs a really compelling question. Must you choose only one path? Like, if you want to dive deep into dance, do you just have to pick a lane and stay in it forever?
Actually, the answer is no. Welcome to Section 4, the best of both. These are absolutely not mutually exclusive paths. In fact, the source material points out something incredible. The very best dancers in the world purposefully synthesize both of these worlds to become complete artists.
So, why do dedicated social dancers step onto the competition floor? They enter the competitive arena specifically to challenge themselves. Many social dancers eventually hit this plateau where they realize, hey, without the harsh, objective magnifying glass of a judge, my technique simply won't break through to the next level. They need that structured, intense feedback to progress in technical control. And the cool part is, that control then cycles right back to make them infinitely smoother and more responsive on the social floor. Conversely, competitors desperately need social dance. Without it, their meticulously drilled routines risk becoming incredibly stiff, and they can easily end up looking like beautifully dressed, highly athletic robots. Honestly, social dancing is the ultimate cure for competitive burnout. It reconnects them to the simple joy of the music. It forces them to keep their true lead and follow partner skills sharp rather than just relying on memorization, making it the perfect practice ground for genuine, on-the-spot adaptability. If we distill everything we've talked about down to its absolute essence, the source material puts it perfectly. Ultimately, social dancing is about shared enjoyment and connection. Competing is about structured performance and evaluated results. Boom. That is a powerful anchor that beautifully summarizes everything we've unpacked in this explainer. Two distinctly different goals, two entirely different psychological mindsets, but all built upon the exact same beautiful foundation of movement. So, the next time you hear the music start, I really want you to ask yourself, which events will you choose to shape your dance journey? Are you going to seek the warmth of the social connection, the heat of the competitive spotlight, or maybe a masterclass in both? Understanding these differences allows you to set the right expectations for how you learn, how you practice, and ultimately, how you measure your own incredible progress. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep dancing, and I'll catch you next time.